In today's video, we're going to be diving into the upcoming pattern throughout the next month, the next season, so throughout the fall, and even taking a deep dive into the winter time. So we're actually going to be just trying to go over the entirety of the foreseeable future at all. Obviously, confidence is much higher in the short range, and it is going to get a little bit sketchier as we move on, but we're going to try to use the sea surface temperatures to kind of get an understanding of all of the teleconnections and everything like that going on out there to give us a good idea of what the upcoming pattern should look like. We did one of these about a month ago or something like that, and I really want to try to update that today just in case there's any changes and just let you guys know kind of how everything stands currently. So the main features, just to kind of go over it, is a weak La Nina featured by this cooler than normal area set up across the equatorial Pacific. A weak La Nina or neutral ENSO is going to be two of the most favorable wintertime ENSOs. El Nino Southern Oscillation is what that stands for. So, the opposite of El Nino is what we have right now. And we have a weak one. You typically moderate to strong La Ninas, you start to see a little bit less favorable winters pop up. So weaker La Ninas into like the neutral territory is going to be the best. And that's kind of where we stand right now. So everything's looking good there. We do see this warmer blob here. We have seen some cooling south of Alaska, which is a little bit less than favorable, but overall, if you were to take this region as a whole, it looks very, very good. You would like to see some cooler conditions here, more in the central Pacific, but again, there's plenty of time for improvement, and you could argue that this is that trying to kind of set up here. So everything's looking good on the Pacific side of things for the most part. We do have warmer than normal sea surface temperatures in a lot of your Atlantic regions, like the Gulf, the Caribbean, areas near Bermuda, and just offshore of the East Coast, even as you move out into the middle of the Atlantic. And I would argue that you would rather see the warmer anomalies up here closer to coastal Canada and Greenland here for perhaps some blocking. And just to give you an idea, we're looking at these somewhat for different teleconnections like the La Nina side of things, but also trying to figure out where areas of warmer air is going to set up due to the warmer water, and the opposite for cooler water, although warmer water is going to impact and actually warm the air much more than the other way around with the cooler water and stuff. So just to give you an idea of what that could look like with the current setup is a ridge here, trough here, ridge here, trough here, ridge here, and then maybe trough here is what we're seeing. And if you were to see warmer waters up here, you could get a little bit more of what we would call blocking, and that would just allow for even more potent Arctic air to dip into here. The higher these ridges are outside of the United States, the more that is going to force more potent cold air into the gap there, which would be set up over the central and eastern states. So I hope that makes sense as to why we're kind of looking for these warm spots in the oceans there. Now, let's go ahead and move on, and the first thing we're going to look at here is the shorter range CFS daily model. So this is going to give us an idea of what to expect over the coming days and weeks, even to about a month out. And then we're going to start looking at it month by month. We will also look at the precipitation, and we will be looking at a separate model as well after this one. So let's just take a look. Here's what we're seeing over the next 7 days. We've been kind of calling for this backdoor cold front type pattern along the East Coast. That is expected to set up still. But we do have the cooler temperatures over the West, which is creating this ridge in the central states. And this is going to be not so favorable for long-term cold in the East just yet. And as we kind of just move on, we do end up seeing a warmer pattern after that cooler period for the East Coast is said and done, where this is purely what we would call a negative PNA pattern. Trough in the West, ridge in the central and eastern states. Over time, as we reach towards late October, we see this model take a huge shift. This is for the 22nd through 29th time frame, and this is a seasonal model, so this model is made, it is crafted for this exact thing, looking at the medium to long range, and that is different than our short range model, medium to long range. We're looking at it on a seasonal basis, but we do see some warming. It could be warmer, but we do see some warming setting up here in what we'd call the PNA area. And this allows for, again, just this entire area to deal with cooler than normal conditions. So that starts to set up for the late October timeframe. And then we really see that continue for the East Coast and the Gulf Coast a lot longer as we move into early November. A lot of the more interior areas warm up, and this is kind of going similarly to how we saw early September go with that cooldown where it ended with the coast. So this is pretty realistic for the pattern we've been in. And then we don't get to anything concrete towards the end, although the end here, you know, at days 30 through 45, we're going to take it with a grain of salt. Obviously, that's very far out, but a little inconclusive there. Let's take a look at the monthly version, though. So here's for September here, and interestingly enough, we actually see a warmer October on this model. I guess that makes sense because it doesn't show any significant cooling till we're past the halfway mark, so slightly warmer than normal is what this model is initially calling for, with some cooler temps over the west. Again, more of a negative PNA pattern. This isn't necessarily my thoughts, but just the CFS monthly model from today. This is the thoughts from that model. November is quite similar. I know a lot of you are disappointed by that, but as soon as December comes around, we switch gears and we see this positive PNA really coming into shape. We see cooler than normal air just diving into the central and eastern states. And again, note this warmer pocket over the Hudson Bay and up there over coastal Canada. Again, that ridge is allowing for this funnel of cold air to move into the central and eastern states, really, really creating this strong effect. January here, some cooler temperatures for the deeper south and southeast locations, but a little bit of a thaw. And then February is more purely cold in the east, again, warm in the west. And for just curiosity, March kind of flips the gears here. Interestingly enough, this is actually quite similar to how last winter went, where it was like as soon as we hit March, we just started to see the warm air pour into the eastern states. As soon as we were reaching towards the springtime, the wintertime was quite cold. This would be a similar situation. The precipitation, just month by month, October is a lot more focused on the north, central, and western states, and not too different than what we've seen lately. November as well, quite similar. December, not too different. January, dry in the east, and February, dry in the east. This would be terrible, terrible news with these areas already struggling with drought conditions. But I will say I've noticed over the years that climate models tend to struggle with precipitation a little bit more than temperatures. Obviously, there's many examples of them just kind of being completely wrong with both, but the temperatures tend to be a little bit easier for models to have a little bit of a grasp on compared to precipitation, I have noticed. Looking at the CanSIPS model, this is the Canadian kind of climate model, whereas the CFS is the more American equivalent. And this is for September. October is a little cooler in the east, warm in the west as compared to the CFS model. November, similar, positive PNA dominated, straight into December. The only thing is we do struggle to get cooler temperatures near the southeast and deep south, but these northern areas do get cooler than normal conditions for December. January, some of them, that warm air in the east is a little concerning, more of a southeast ridge type pattern. And then February isn't too different. So pretty interesting. This model seems to have a pretty concrete idea of the type of pattern it thinks we're going to be in. I'll be curious to see, though. March, not too different either. Precipitation, again, these models do struggle with it, but this is a completely different idea. Coast, West Coast, East Coast, wet. Central states dry for October. November, a little similar. The Northwest dries up. The Southeast gets a little bit wetter, and so does the Southwest. December, a lot drier from coast to coast there. January, a little drier in the West and deep South with some wetter spots in the Mid-Atlantic and perhaps the Rockies. And then February, we see more of this north central through northeastern wetter pattern. Kind of coincides with some of our thoughts for the wintertime, but a little drier for the west and a little drier for the deep south into the southeast. Again, definitely goes along with what our winter forecast was mostly calling for. Of course, we expect a little bit above average in the northwest, but with a few exceptions, this is pretty close to what our thoughts have been for the winter time. So today I just wanted to give you guys this update on all of this long range stuff throughout the fall and winter. And I'll be trying to give these to you guys every few weeks to maybe about every month, just to keep you guys in the loop with any developments and any changes in the models or the current conditions, so we can keep you guys updated in between the updates for the winter forecasts. So be sure to subscribe. We upload every single day. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it, leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.